We've been fortunate in that our growth's been pretty phenomenal over the last 2.5, 3 years, and we don't have any plans of stopping. So having a growth-minded leader come into the business is huge. All of our folks are that way. We love that. We want that. We want more of that on the team.
Folks, welcome to the next episode of M&A Insights. With me today is David Williams, VP of M&A at Corsair, headquartered out of Greenville, South Carolina, but with a national presence. Corsair has been busy integrating and growing MSPs across the nation. They've acquired 16 companies since 2022, 9 in 2024, and they are just getting started. What makes Corsair different from your next PE platform? Their ability to grow organically while integrating internally. If you are a growth-focused founder who wants a partner to turbocharge your plans while maintaining your identity with your clients, listen to this podcast to learn more about Corsair. But first, before we go any further, let's get some housekeeping out of the way. My name is Madhur Duggar. I work in the IT and software M&A space, and this is my podcast series, M&A Insights. If you are interested in having a conversation around the strategic direction of your firm, are looking to grow your book and want some marketing and business development help, or are an investor looking to make an acquisition in the space, write to me at podcastwithmadhur, that's MADHUR, @gmail.com, or reach out to me on LinkedIn. Dave, welcome to the show. So happy to have you on there. Happy New Year, by the way. How are you doing?
Happy New Year. Doing well. We're energized coming into 2025 and just excited to hit the ground running.
Tell us a little bit about Corsair's platform and what role you play in that.
Sure. Our platform strategy is relatively simple. We want to be the best home for business owners and their employees. Our entire team spends a ton of time focusing on opportunities for our A players. We're just big believers that if we focus on growing the individual, that we'll grow the company, and the bottom line will take care of itself. Now, yes, you have to manage your P&L, but that's our core strategy here. And for me, I'm fortunate enough to just be able to kind of help with our inorganic growth. So I head our M&A efforts here at Corsair. Been with the company a little over 2 years, about 2.5 years now. Prior, I was with a PE-backed commercial HVAC company for about 5 years. That's just where I got my stripes, so to speak, or just learned how to operate in a fast-paced, acquisitive environment.
And is Corsair PE-backed as well?
We are.
Yeah. How many acquisitions have you done over the last few years? What was 2024 like, and what are you looking at to do in 2025?
So we've been PE backed now for a little over 2.5 years, and in that time, we've completed 16 partnerships, with 9 of those in 2024. So really, started to get our footing and started to get some scale last year in 2024, and in 2025, if we can do at least what we did last year, ideally more in terms of volume, that would be ideal. We had a couple larger acquisitions earlier in the year last year. So we'll see from a revenue and EBITDA perspective what that looks like. But in terms of volume, we'd love to do at least the same amount.
Very busy year then, 2024. That 9 is a pretty solid clip. What was the range of sizes you did?
Range would have been somewhere from around $1 million of revenue for what we would call a tuck-in. So a much smaller MSP that was in a market that we already had a presence in. So that size is a little bit different for what we can consider for a tuck-in. Up to, I think the largest one was just shy of 15 million in revenue.
Okay. What differentiates Corsair's platform from that of other big buyers in the marketplace?
Sure. I think the biggest difference is really our ability to grow despite integration. We are firm believers that integration gives us the ability to go further, faster. The best way to describe our approach, I would say, is at a high level. Externally facing, it would appear as there's been no transaction. the brand name stays, the leader typically stays. We don't do customer announcements. We don't do press releases. But that said, internally facing, there's a high degree of integration. If you think about the core functions of the business, according to EOS, so back office, sales, marketing, operations, we really have a high degree of integration across all three. You asked about ConnectWise prior. We do migrate everybody to one instance of ConnectWise. There's a lot of why behind that, but I think that's our biggest differentiator, is just the ability to grow through that. And I think a lot of times integration can have this reputation of being so disruptive and potentially taking businesses backwards. At a consolidated level, we grew very nicely organically in 2024, which we were really proud of. So we do feel like we've got a little bit of a secret sauce there.
So you do an acquisition. Does the founder stay, or does he have to stay, or can they leave, but you still would expect somebody in leadership to be managing that company?
We'll take it a little bit case by case. So I mentioned a tuck-in earlier. So we've had a scenario where there's a smaller business in a market that we're already in, and if in that case, if the leader of that business is ultimately looking to exit, it would be open to that. Obviously, it's a customer service business at the end of the day, so you really just want to make sure that we've got security around the customers and the employees in that transition. So if we have a plan for that and someone wants to step away, then that's okay. Now, for a larger business, where maybe there's less infrastructure around the leader, that gets a little more risky to think about that individual leaving the business in the near term. And we've certainly had people who have joined saying, "Hey, I've got maybe 2 or 3 years ahead of me, right? But I'm not here for 5 or 10," and that's okay, right? Biggest assets that we partner with are our customers and employees, and as long as we can feel we have a high degree of confidence that those are going to stay and we can continue to build upon those, and we have a leader there, we do want a chief in the business, then that's kind of okay. But I would say 9 times out of 10, the folks who partner with us, they end up staying to lead their business.
And did I hear you correctly that from the client's perspective, their interaction and the logo that they're interacting with, the emails that they're receiving, that doesn't change for them? Is that fair?
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay.
Customers wouldn't have to know about a transaction.
Okay.
From a sales and marketing perspective, this is where I would say it's a little bit of a different path for each business with the same end goal in mind. We just try to meet them where they are in terms of their operational maturity level. If it's a founder, bootstrapped entrepreneur who is the sole sales function of the business, now we're focusing on how do we go install a professional sales organization to drive new logo growth, yes, but also make sure that we have a solid account management function. If there's already an existing sales and marketing team, then great. We're not looking to come in with an axe and try to disrupt something if it's working. That said, we may continue to invest just to try to pour gas on that fire and see if we can help the business grow faster.
From a deal structure standpoint, Dave, cash, roll-up equity, earnouts, what are you seeing and what are you doing?
We typically, it's pretty simple with us. It's cash and rollover equity. The amount of each, there could be varying degrees just due to, that could be customer concentration, that could be runway of the seller, that could be the demonstrated ability to grow. A few factors could just what the seller is ultimately looking for. If they're trying to push up or down by a small degree, that's nothing we're going to shy away from. So we'll listen to our sellers in that regard as well. But it's a pretty straightforward structure typically.
Let's talk a little bit about what kind of things you look for on the financial side in terms of the business profile. What are some key things that are important for you, and are there any red flags?
Several. So from a quantitative perspective, we'll certainly take a look and consider the scale, just total revenue. We spend a ton of time looking at organic revenue growth, as well as just the quality of the revenue. So thinking about how much of it is recurring, growth of the recurring revenue. We spend a lot of time looking at gross revenue retention and net revenue retention. Gross revenue retention, you think about it like a bucket. You come into the year with a bucket of water, how much of it is leaking? So just downsell and lost customer. Net revenue retention, how we define it, is that plus your ability to upsell and cross-sell and generate price increases. We're certainly paying a lot of attention to the margin profile and customer concentration.
Yeah.
So when you think about just the quantitative side of how we evaluate those businesses, those tend to be the key metrics that we'll focus on. From a qualitative side, definitely looking at geography. How many years have you been in operation? Are you founder-led? What's the runway of the leadership and just the overall management team structure? We'll consider your tech stack a little bit, but definitely consider too just your operational maturity from a sales perspective. How are you driving new logos, and what is your ability once you have a new logo to now cross-sell, upsell, and really drive that net revenue retention? So a lot to consider from a quantitative and qualitative perspective. I would say culture is a huge piece for us. You think about folks that go through our integration path, and it's not easy. So we need to know that we have a strong culture fit. It's easy to be a good partner when times are good, but what happens when you lose that key customer, or you lose a key employee and times are a little tough? I think that's when you figure out how strong of a culture fit you really have. So we try to spend a lot of time in person with these business owners. I think that's just the best way that you can ultimately gauge culture. And I like to use the analogy that a lot of our business leaders use, and that they can hire off of culture and teach the tech talent. We think about that a lot from an M&A perspective. If you're a good culture fit, we want you on the team. And whether that's now or sometime in the future, that's okay. But we first and foremost want to make sure that we're the right home for you and your business.
And what would you think of when you would think of Courser's culture?
For me, if we're partnering with a business that just doesn't want to grow and doesn't have that DNA of being growth-minded, you're likely not a fit for us. We've been fortunate in that our growth's been pretty phenomenal over the last 2.5, 3 years, and we don't have any plans of stopping. So having a growth-minded leader come into the business is huge. All of our folks are that way. Everybody is super competitive. We love that. We want that. We want more of that on the team, and integrity. As much as it's important for business owners to be able to trust the person that they're going to sell their baby to, it's equally as important for us to be able to trust that leader.
What are some of the most common misses that sellers make when they are getting ready for due diligence? What advice can you give them?
The best advice I could give a seller is not to paint the diligence process as this super onerous process that you don't understand. Regardless of whether you have an advisor, that's my role. I can coach you through this. Okay. You know your business, and you're going to have advisors to help you along the way from a legal, tax, financial perspective. I think folks can hype up, the process as kind of like this big ugly animal. And when you get into it, you realize that you've got an MSP who's been through this process tons of times on the other side, and we're here to help coach you through it. Okay. So if it's something that you're nervous about from a financial or legal or tax or HR or whatever the issue is, ask questions, talk to folks around the industry. Best advice I always encourage people to do is just have conversations. That could be with a buyer, that could be with someone who's been through the process. Get different perspectives.
Let's talk about risks that you see, that might be underappreciated in this space.
There's so many risks when you buy a business. Does the leader stay? Do the employees stay? Is there a culture clash when you've got a 10-person business that you're thinking about partnering with? What happens if you lose 3 of them? What happens if you lose 30% of the customers, right? It's a slippery slope. And I think it's even tougher from a cultural perspective. You're partnering with an entrepreneur who has not had a boss for a period of time. And now you're trying to partner with that business and lead it and grow it, not just retain it. And that's a challenge, especially when you yourself are lean and trying to grow.
Dave, thank you so much. This was a fantastic conversation. I appreciate you taking our time on a busy week right at the start of the year. Look forward to talking with you again, meeting you at one of our conferences, and maybe speaking at a conference panel together.
Absolutely, Madhur. It's always great to chat with you, and look forward to seeing you at one of these conferences here soon.
Yep, great. Thanks, Dave. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Madhur.